Hey, Sassy Stuff. I'm Emma here with Bailey and Georgia, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Alabama and Michigan Bowl game. So they're in the ReliaQuest Bowl, formerly known as the Outback Bowl. I prefer the old name, but this is a clash between these two powerhouse programs with rich traditions, competitive histories. Michigan's obviously the winningest program in all of college football. Bama has the most national championships with 18. So it's kind of sad that they're not in the first ever 12-team playoff, but they are playing in this game. This is going to be a rematch of last year's semifinal game where Michigan came out on top, and then Michigan went on to play Washington, who was led by Kalen DeBoer. So there's a lot of revenge on the Alabama side all around. So how are you guys feeling about this game?
Oh my goodness. I think it's going to be exciting to at least watch this whole dynamic happen again this year. But as we were just talking about before this, I mean, do we really care about the bowl games that much? Especially when
I
it,
care
we
about the bowl games.
I
I
mean, I'm glad Georgia does. I'm the worst when it
I
comes to it. But all jokes aside, though, this is going to be a really, really fun opportunity to at least watch, and especially as we're seeing Kalen DeBoer get the opportunity to quote unquote kind of have this little revenge game against this program that they lost to last year whenever he was the head coach of Washington. It's going to be interesting to watch the dynamic that's setting us up for next year's season and how these different teams are going to go into it and tackle this, but most importantly, how they're going to be able to hopefully come together and really continue to form a sense of camaraderie in the postseason.
Yeah, I feel like Michigan isn't going into this game with as big of a chip on their shoulder as Alabama is. Alabama being the first team out, then watching SMU get destroyed, Indiana get destroyed. I think that Alabama might be going into this with more emotions, bad emotions, like not that they need to throw away. Like, I don't think they need to focus on anything about not getting into the playoffs at this point. That's old news. And I feel like that's going to be hard for some of these kids to not focus on. So I hope Kalen DeBoer is doing a good job of getting them emotionally and mentally ready for this game. Because as we saw, when you're not prepared for Michigan, even now, Michigan can mess you up.
I know we saw that with Ohio State. And Nick Saban even said that maybe Ohio State needs to go into therapy because they definitely have a Michigan problem because they should have absolutely won that game after even seeing what they did to Tennessee in that first round of the playoffs. But Michigan's entering a transitional year. They had significant losses to the NFL, and a lot of their coaching staff, including their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, left this team. So this has kind of been a rebuilding year for them. This isn't the Michigan that we've seen the past few seasons. But they're on the up and up, and good things are going to happen for them. People want to play for teams like Michigan. People want to play for teams like Alabama. My biggest thing in this game is Michigan does have some major opt-outs. Will Johnson, who is the All-American cornerback, will not be playing. Mason Graham, the defensive tackle with 3.5 sacks, will not be playing. Donovan Edwards, key running back in Michigan's ground-heavy offense, will not be playing, and Colston Loveland, the tight end, and Miles Hilton, offensive lineman, will not be playing. So they've lost a lot of their key players here, whereas Alabama is still has their QB, Jalen Milroe, who will be playing in this game. He hasn't announced for the NFL yet. I think he will once he finishes this game. I think it could be similar to how Bryce Young left out, where he played the final game despite not making the playoffs. And then I think around the third or fourth quarter, he waved himself away and said, "Thank you, Alabama." And the next generation stepped up in that game. So I think that's kind of what's going to happen here with Jalen Milroe in this game.
Really, Julia, and it's funny you mentioned those, all the different missing players from Michigan's side, because really, Alabama, we only have Malachi Moore, who is probably one of our most prominent players, aside from the left tackle, Caden Proctor, sitting out this particular game. And Malachi's was due to injuries he sustained throughout the entire season. So, from a true team dynamic standpoint, Alabama is looking like a more cohesive unit stepping into this game versus Michigan, which, I mean, a 7-5 season for them, great start. However, if you really do want to continue to make a splash as this head coach is trying to do with this program, it's definitely important to have your team show up and show out in the same way they did against Ohio State.
I think that is one of the things with bowl games is that a lot of kids don't care about it anymore. They're either transferring to a different team. The one I really understand is they're getting prepared for the NFL draft, which is some of the Michigan players. That's what they're doing. So I completely understand not playing in the game on that standpoint. But then you do look at the players of Alabama that are still playing in this game, even though they're most likely declaring for the draft. And so I feel like it just means more at Alabama. So we'll use that little quote. It means more. They're more of a team. I feel like maybe Michigan, they don't care. Like, hey, we haven't had that great of a season. Who cares if I play in this game? I think that's a little bit unfortunate for the sport of football.
It is sad to see opt-outs in bowl games. They aren't what they used to be, especially now that there is a 12-team playoff. And if it grows to a 14 or 16 team playoff, these bowl games will just become more and more irrelevant, and we'll see more and more opt outs along the way. I was watching the Oklahoma and Navy game yesterday, and Oklahoma did drop that game. And I was like, well, that's a little bit embarrassing for Alabama to have them lose. And I was talking to my dad, and he's like, but that's not the same team anymore. You have the transfers, you have people opting out to go to the NFL, and Navy is actually a team where the whole team is there. So it makes sense that they came out on top. They also played a great game. But it is sad across the board that players continue to opt out of these games. But if you are a fan of that team, it is something special to see your team play one more game in the 2024 season. So Alabama and Michigan are going to play. And I do like that these two storied teams are getting the chance to go at it in this bowl game on a day that there is a playoff game. So it is a pretty important game. I do love New Year's Eve and New Year's Day games. Alabama's defense, they're ranked top 20 nationally in points allowed. Their strengths include a disciplined secondary, which is amazing because we thought the secondary was going to be a big problem early in this year because of how young they are. But I think Kane Womack's done a really great job with this team. And they're really able to pressure opposing QBs, which we saw a little bit later in this season. I know the dual threat QBs aren't their strength here this year. Michigan is also known for their physicality. They rank 23rd in red zone success rate. They allow just 3.4 first quarter points on average, setting the tone for games. They are missing their key players in Graham and Johnson, so it is going to leave a gap for them. But, next man up. And of course, on offense for Alabama, Jalen Milroe is staying in this game. Ryan Williams will be there. Bernard will be there. They do have limited depth beyond their top receivers, which could affect their passing game. But Mbakwe, who was going to transfer, who said, no, I'm going to stay at Alabama. He was playing on the defensive side. He now wants to switch to that offensive side. And in practice, he has been practicing with the offense. So we should see him potentially at that wide receiver role against Michigan.
Now let's talk about the spread real fast here, ladies. So we're looking at this right now. Bama is favored by 10.5 points. And we've done this recently. We like to predict the different scores. I think we've gotten close on some of these games recently. So what are y'all feeling our final score of this game is going to be?
I'm expecting a big win from the Crimson Tide. I'm going to say 35-10. And then I think in that end of the third, start of the fourth quarter, Jalen Milroe will make his exit as the QB1 of the Alabama football team, and he will officially enter the NFL draft after that.
I'm gonna miss him so much. Anyways, I was thinking like 32-17.
I like it.
He's
Yeah,
so
that's
good.
what I'm thinking. And I also wanted to mention, like you were talking about Jalen Mbakwe practicing at wide receiver, and I'm really excited for that. So when I saw he was going to the transfer portal, that's the one that really hit me. Like we've
Yeah.
had some other, transfers that I've been like, oh, that's a bummer. But when I saw he was going in the transfer portal, I was like throwing things. I was mad. I was angry. I was like, I'm never cheering for a team ever again. Obviously I would still do it, but
You just got to calm
I'm not
down first.
I'm not gonna have favorite players ever. Then he decided to stay, so I was really happy. And watching him in practice as a wide receiver, I know he kind of wants to do the Travis Hunter thing and work on both sides of the ball, which I think would be really exciting to see a player like that. Watching Travis Hunter was just amazing. So to see another player be able to do that, I'm really excited for. But yeah, I mean, Michigan's going to have to stop the run game. And that's going to be hard because a lot of their guys are out. But they're opponents on Michigan are averaging 3.1 yards per carry, and Alabama averages 6.5 yards per play on opponents. So that's double what Michigan allows. So I don't feel like Michigan's going to be able to hold Alabama's offense.
Well, I also think this is an important game for Kalen DeBoer to win. I know the bowl games, you have opt outs across the board. But I think on the fan side of it all, he did go 9-3 in his first season, which is a great accomplishment, a big change, especially in this crazy NIL era, losing a good portion of the team after Nick Saban left and not really being able to bring any new talent in that he really wanted to shape, losing the people who he thought were going to be his coordinators to the NFL. I think he's done a lot in his first season, a lot of good things. There's obviously a lot of room for improvement as well. I think he's going to get a QB in there that follows his style of play. He wants someone like a Michael Penix to get the job done for him, but he's done so much with a QB who isn't in his style. So I think this is an important game on the fan side for him to win. I think he'll get a lot of hate if he, one, misses the 12-team playoff, and two, then doesn't go and win a bowl game against Michigan, who is a 7-5 team this year. So I think he has a lot of pressure on him, but he has a good head on his shoulders. I think he's a sweet guy from everything we've seen in interviews, and I hope he gets the job done for his sake, but I'm excited for what he does in 2025.
And if we can be able to look at this game as something that's not, we're wrapping up the season, we're finalizing it, look at this as like a fresh, clean start. Just like what your dad was saying, this is a completely new team from what we started with the very beginning games over back in August and September. Is that if fans are smart enough to realize this, look at this as a very fresh, clean start for Kalen DeBoer going into a true season where he is the head coach. People know exactly what he's all about. Transfers are coming to Alabama for him to play with him. That's what they're there for. I think this is going to be the first marker of this whole new Kalen DeBoer era that really gives them a shining star platform versus it being something that was so overshadowed by the Nick Saban legacy.
I think every fan, I mean, we saw what Ohio State fans were doing to Ryan Day, and I just think from an Alabama fan perspective, yeah, I feel like they know, but I feel like there's so much emotion that they ignore the facts and they're just focused on, well, we didn't do this and we didn't do that, and you need to be fired immediately. And I saw someone was like, Kalen DeBoer will be fired next year. I'm like, goodness gracious, he just got started. That's a great season for a first year coach.
Coming into the SEC,
Coming
especially
into the
having to play, like
ACC.
he beat Georgia, he beat the SEC champion, he beat potentially the national champion.
It's really exciting to watch this whole new set of players come in, this whole new era that really started but is now actually getting legs and getting to go. Bama fans, I'm one myself. I think all three of us are on this call. And
Yeah.
it's been such a fun time of getting to watch this winning legacy. But I think fans also that have joined and have not been dedicated to the fan base for long periods of time don't quite understand that there was a big dry period in between the Saban era and all the different things that happened between with Stallings and Bear Bryant, everything else. I mean, there's a long history, and excellence takes time to actually continue to come into form. And if anything, this game is just another win for Kalen DeBoer in my book of him actually getting to set the precedent for what he's all about and getting to have this whole era of the SEC that he's continued to usher in. So it's going to be interesting, ladies. I'm ready to watch that. This will be fun.
I am too. I wish it was still called the Outback Bowl, but ReliaQuest, here we come. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Who do you think's going to win, Alabama or Michigan? And we will see you next time.